Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The rusty wind of Xandros howled among the skeletons of crashed ships, kicking up red dust that looked like dried blood in the dying light. Alex tightened the belt of his worn-out cloak, feeling the familiar weight of emptiness settle in his chest. Every gust of wind seemed to whisper the same name. Elena. 5 years. 5 years he had lived in this personal hell, on a planet where a Zytar raid had taken everything from him. His squad, his ship, his wife. The memories of her smile, her voice, the warmth of her hand in his, all ghosts that haunted him with relentless precision. He stayed on Xandros not from choice, but because there was nowhere to run. Memory haunted him more relentlessly than any enemy could. His shelter, little more than a repurposed escape pod reinforced with scavenged materials, offered minimal protection against the planet's harsh elements. Inside, a collection of meager possessions told the story of a man who had stopped living and merely existed. A cracked, hollow frame displaying Elena's face. A core insignia, tarnished but still bearing the motto, "Never leave anyone behind." The bitter irony of those words made Alex's mouth twist in a grimace whenever he looked at it. Today was different. Through the grimy viewport of his shelter, he spotted something unusual on the horizon. Black smoke, unnatural for this world, rose from a canyon several kilometers away. A crash, fresh, recent. His heart rate quickened, the first genuine emotion besides grief he'd felt in months. Alex grabbed his old impulse rifle, checking its charge with practiced movements. The weapon hummed to life, its power cells still reliable despite years of minimal maintenance. He wasn't looking for trouble, but he couldn't ignore the signal. It was the only thing left of the captain he once was, a duty to those in distress. "Just reconnaissance," he muttered to himself, voice hoarse from disuse. "Just see what happened." The journey across the rust-colored landscape was punishing. Xandros had never been meant for human habitation. Its atmosphere was thin, its temperatures extreme, and its native life forms universally hostile. But it was perfect for a man seeking punishment. The crash site came into view gradually. A mess of twisted metal and smoldering debris scattered across a half-kilometer stretch of rocky terrain. The ship was unlike anything Alex had seen in core service. Sleek, predatory lines, a dark alloy that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The Zytar ship, unmistakable. Hate, cold and sharp, pierced Alex's heart. His grip tightened on the rifle, knuckles white against the stock. The Zytar, raiders, conquerors, murderers, Elena's killers. He circled the wreckage cautiously, each step deliberate, looking for survivors. Not to save them, for revenge. And he found her. A single survivor lay pinned beneath a fragment of the hull. Blue skin, the characteristic cobalt hue of the Zytar, was visible where her jet-black armor had been damaged. She wore a fully enclosed helmet with a narrow blade-like visor slit, the mark of a warrior caste. She was alive. Her faint, shallow breathing gave her away, the slight rise and fall of her chest barely perceptible. Alex raised his rifle, aiming for her head. One shot, for Elena, for everyone they had killed, for 5 years of nightmares and empty days. His finger rested on the trigger, the pressure point just millimeters away. The warrior didn't move, didn't plead. She just lay there, broken and helpless. In his mind, Alex saw Elena, not as she had died, but alive, her eyes full of compassion, even for their enemies. "We're better than them," she had always said. "That's why we'll win." And he couldn't do it. With a curse that echoed across the crash site, he lowered his weapon. The hate still burned, but it wasn't enough to make him an executioner. The soldier's code, drilled into him through years of service, forbade shooting the unarmed and wounded, even if they were the enemy. With a bitter taste in his mouth, he turned away. He wouldn't save her, but he wouldn't become a murderer either. He would just leave. As he took his first step away, the ground beneath his feet trembled. A low, chittering sound rose from behind the rocks surrounding the crash site. Alex froze, a cold dread replacing the heat of hatred. From behind the rocks they appeared, the native predators, the Chryslers. Resembling giant armored insects, their carapaces gleaming with an iridescent sheen in the harsh sunlight. 6 legs, each ending in serrated claws capable of shredding metal. They had scented blood and fresh meat. There were at least a dozen of them, moving with the coordinated precision of pack hunters. Alex knew he was trapped. He couldn't fight them alone, not even at his peak, and certainly not after 5 years of isolation and neglect. He raised his rifle again, preparing to sell his life dearly. The Chryslers closed in, their clicking mandibles revealing rows of needle-like teeth. Suddenly, a clang of metal came from behind him. Alex whirled, rifle ready. The Zaitar warrior, having freed herself from the wreckage, was on her feet. In her hand was an energy blade that hummed to life as she activated it, casting an eerie blue glow across her armor. She stood beside Alex, shoulder to shoulder. She didn't say a word, but her stance was clear. The enemy of my enemy. They were surrounded, 2 soldiers from warring worlds preparing for a final battle. The first Chrysler attacked with blinding speed, leaping toward Alex with mandibles extended. His rifle barked, the impulse round catching the creature mid-jump, sending it tumbling backward in a spray of viscous fluid. Another immediately took its place, and another. The Zaitar warrior moved with lethal grace, her energy blades slicing through chitin with terrifying efficiency. She fought with the cold precision of a veteran, each movement calculated for maximum effect. Alex fired with the discipline of a corps captain, making every shot count. They didn't communicate, not with words, but their actions were perfectly synchronized, as if they had fought together for years. When a Chrysler flanked Alex, the warrior was there, her blade flashing. When 3 creatures cornered her, Alex's rifle cleared a path. The battle was short and brutal. When the last Chrysler fell, the silence, broken only by the crackling of burning debris, seemed deafening. Alex breathed heavily, adrenaline giving way to the pain of old wounds reopened. The warrior stood motionless, then deactivated her blade with a soft hiss. She turned to him, and through the narrow slit of her helmet, he felt her studying gaze. She took a step, then another. Alex tensed, ready to raise his rifle again, but she merely pointed to his thigh, where blood was flowing from a wound sustained during the fight. Then she pointed to herself. Her armor was also damaged, and a deep gash was visible through a crack in her thigh plate. The message was clear without words. We are both wounded, and we are in danger. She pointed toward the canyon and gestured for him to follow. Why should I trust you? Alex asked, his voice rough. She tilted her head, perhaps not understanding his words, but recognizing the distrust in his tone. She pointed again to the horizon, where more dust clouds suggested another pack of Chryslers was approaching. Distrustful, but knowing he wouldn't survive alone, Alex nodded. She led him to a shelter, a cave hidden behind a waterfall of red sand that cascaded continuously down the canyon wall. The entrance was narrow, requiring them to squeeze through, but inside it opened into a space large enough for both of them to stand. It was cool and surprisingly dry, the acoustics dampening the howling wind outside. She silently took out a medical kit from her pack, different from a human's, but with understandable tools. She treated her own wounds with efficient ruthlessness, cleaning the gash in her thigh without a sound despite what must have been considerable pain. Then she offered the kit to him. As he bandaged himself, Alex couldn't shake a strange feeling. Something about her movements, her posture, was achingly familiar. He had seen her move in battle, and it was like a dance he knew but couldn't remember where he'd seen it. The way she tilted her head when considering something, the slight hesitation before offering help. Why did you save me? He asked, knowing she wouldn't understand. She looked at him, then at her blade, and then back at him. She held up 2 fingers, then brought them together. 2 become 1. Allies. Alex shook his head. Enemies, he said, pointing first at himself, then at her, and then drawing a hand across his throat. She froze for a moment, then slowly nodded. She understood. The weight of their people's war hung between them, a wall more solid than the stone surrounding them. She approached, and Alex instinctively flinched away. She stopped, then cautiously reached a hand toward his chest, where an old dented locket hung beneath his shirt, the one he never took off. Inside wasn't just a hollow photo of Elena. It contained a quantum memory crystal, a core technology capable of storing massive amounts of encrypted data in molecular structures. Her hand trembled as she pointed at the locket, then at herself. Alex frowned, not understanding. She repeated the gesture, then touched her helmet. Suddenly she gasped, her body convulsing as if struck by electricity. She doubled over, a keening sound escaping her. What's wrong? Alex asked, instinctively moving toward her. She held up a hand, stopping him until the spasm passed. She straightened slowly, her breathing ragged. The sound of her pain struck Alex like a physical blow. It was too human, too familiar, too much like Elena when she was trying not to cry. Something about the locket had triggered a reaction in her. She stared at it with an intensity that made Alex uncomfortable, as if the object were calling to her across some unfathomable divide. They spent 3 days in the cave, waiting out a sandstorm that howled outside like a living thing. The silence between them was heavy, but not hostile. They shared food and water, communicating with gestures that grew more complex and nuanced with each exchange. Alex learned her name was Kira. She wrote it in the sand with her blade, the alien script followed by clumsy standard galactic letters. He wrote his name in return, and she traced the letters with a curious, gentle touch. He grew more certain that there was something familiar about her. Not her appearance, he had never seen her face, but her essence. The way she tilted her head when she was puzzled. The way her hand rested on the hilt of her blade when she sensed danger. The way she sat, legs folded beneath her, during their silent meals. On the third day they were attacked again. Not Chryslers, but marauders. The dregs of society who flocked to crash sites like vultures. There were 5 of them, armed to the teeth with a mismatched collection of weapons from a dozen worlds. "We know you're in there," a rough voice called from outside. "Come out with your hands up, and we might let you live." Alex and Kira exchanged a glance. No words were needed. They would fight. The fight was fierce. In the confines of the cave, Kira couldn't use her speed to its full advantage. She was deadly nonetheless, her blade claiming 2 marauders in the first moments of the battle. Alex fired with precision, dropping a third. But the remaining 2 were veterans themselves. One of them flanked Kira, while she was engaged with his companion. He struck her on the head with a rifle butt. She staggered, and her helmet, already damaged in the crash, cracked with a sound like breaking ice. Alex flew into a rage. He fought with the desperation of a man with nothing left to lose, protecting the one he should hate. He killed the 4th marauder with a shot to the chest, then tackled the 5th, driving him into the wall with bone-crushing force. The man slumped, unconscious or dead. Alex didn't check. He ran to Kira. She was sitting leaning against the wall, her breathing ragged. The crack in her helmet snaked across the visor like a lightning bolt. "You're hurt," he said, kneeling beside her. He reached for her helmet. "Let me see." Her reaction was immediate and furious. She slapped his hand away with surprising strength for someone injured. "No!" The words, spoken in perfect, clear, standard galactic, sounded like a gunshot in the cave. Alex froze, stunned. You can talk." "Don't touch it," she hissed, pressing her hands to the helmet as if afraid it would fall apart. "I just want to help. Let me see you." "No," her voice was full of pain and despair. "Not after what they did to me." She slowly raised her head, and through the crack in the visor, Alex saw an eye. A single eye. And this eye wasn't blue like her skin, nor gold like the other Zytar he had seen in combat. It was brown, like Elena's. Alex's world turned upside down. He stared at the crack, trying to see more, but she turned away. "Who are you?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "I am," she began, and her body was racked with silent sobs. "I am their weapon." "What do you mean?" Alex asked, his mind racing, trying to make sense of the brown eye and a blue face, the familiar movements, the way she had known exactly where his locket was. "They took me," Kira said, her voice hollow. "They changed me, made me this." She gestured at her blue-skinned body. "The helmet, it controls me, makes me obey." "Who are you?" Alex asked again, a terrible suspicion forming in his mind. "I don't know anymore," she whispered. "They gave me a new name, a new body, but sometimes I remember another life, another name." Suddenly, Kira stiffened. Her body went rigid, eyes widening as if seeing something beyond the cave walls. A keening sound escaped her lips as she pressed her hands against her temples. "What's happening?" Alex reached for her, but stopped when her eyes focused on him with sudden, terrifying intensity. "Get away!" She managed through gritted teeth. Then the memories took her. Her eyes rolled back, revealing only whites. She began to speak, not in her voice, but in the clinical, detached tone of someone else. Subject integration proceeding as expected. Neural pathways show 67% compliance. Increase suppression field to level 4. Her voice shifted, becoming deeper, male with the distinct accent of a Zytar commander. She resists still. Break her completely. I want nothing left of the human. Kira's body convulsed, her back arching in agony. Blue veins bulged beneath her skin, pulsing with unnatural light. When her eyes focused again, they held no recognition, only programmed rage. She launched herself at Alex with inhuman speed, her hands grasping for his throat. He barely managed to deflect her, using her momentum to spin her away. "Kira, it's me!" he shouted, dodging another attack. "You know me!" She was beyond words, a weapon activated by her own memories. Alex refused to strike back, even as her fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling. As she loomed over him, hands poised to deliver a killing blow, Alex didn't reach for his weapon. Instead, he spoke softly, urgently. "Elena," he said, using the name he still wasn't sure belonged to her. "Remember the night on Arcadia Station? The meteor shower? You said it looked like the stars were dancing just for us." Kira hesitated, her hands trembling. "Remember our song?" Alex continued and began to hum the melody. Their melody, the one that had shocked him earlier. The change was gradual but unmistakable. The feral light in her eyes dimmed. Her posture softened, her hands lowered. "Alex," she whispered, her voice her own again. She collapsed beside him, shaking violently. I'm sorry. When I remember, it triggers their programming. They made me a weapon in more ways than one." Alex moved cautiously to her side, gathering her into his arms. "I've got you," he said, holding her as the tremors subsided. "I've got you." "I don't know anymore," she continued, tears streaming down her face. "They said I was a psychological weapon, designed to break the will of a specific target." She looked at him, and even through the narrow crack, the intensity of her gaze was unmistakable. "You!" Alex felt the blood drain from his face. "What do you mean?" "They chose me because of who I was, who I had been. To you." Alex shook his head, not wanting to hear more, yet desperate to know. "Who were you to me?" "I don't remember everything," Kira said, "but I remember loving you." The world seemed to stop. Alex couldn't breathe, couldn't think. It wasn't possible. Elena was dead. He had seen the settlement after the raid. No survivors. "You're lying," he rasped, backing away from her. "This is some kind of trick." "I wish it was," Kira said, her voice breaking. "They showed me what they did, how they rebuilt me, changed me. The helmet suppresses my memories, my will, makes me their perfect soldier." Alex stared at her, unable to process what he was hearing. Could it be possible? Could the Zytar have taken Elena, transformed her into this blue-skinned warrior? "Prove it," he said, his voice barely audible. "Prove you're her." Kira was silent for a long moment. Then softly she began to hum a tune. A simple melody, nothing special to anyone else. But to Alex it was their song. The one Elena had hummed when they danced at their wedding, when they lay together watching the stars, when she couldn't sleep during long deployments. The melody echoed in the cave, a ghost from the past. Alex felt tears streaming down his face, unaware when they had started. "Elena," he whispered, reaching out a trembling hand. She flinched away. "Number not anymore. I'm something else now, something broken." "Let me see you," Alex pleaded. "Please." "You don't want to see what they've done to me," Kira said, shaking her head. "The blue skin is just the beginning." "I don't care," Alex said fiercely. "I need to know." Kira hesitated, then slowly raised her hands to her helmet. "The neural interface, it will hurt when I remove it, and I don't know how long I'll be me without it." Alex nodded, bracing himself for whatever he might see. With shaking hands, Kira unfastened the seals of her helmet. There was a hiss of escaping air, and she gasped in pain as neural connectors detached from her skull. Slowly, she lifted the helmet away, and Alex saw her face. It was Elena's face. Not similar, not a copy. It was her face, alive and unharmed, on the body of a blue-skinned warrior. The same curve of her cheeks, the same full lips, the same small scar above her eyebrow from a childhood accident. But the skin was blue, and where her blonde hair had been, there were fine, tentacle-like appendages that twitched and curled with a life of their own. Alex couldn't speak, couldn't move. The shock was too great. "Now you see," Kira said, Elena's voice coming from Elena's mouth, but with a strange melodic accent that hadn't been there before. "What they made me into?" "How?" Alex finally managed to ask. "How is this possible?" "They found me barely alive after the raid," Kira explained, wincing as if the memories themselves caused physical pain. "They took me to one of their laboratories. They needed a weapon against you, against the core. They knew a conventional attack wouldn't work, so they decided on something more psychological. They turned you into a Zytar?" "Not completely. My mind is still partly human, but my body..." She looked down at her blue hands. "They transplanted my brain into a Zytar body, modified it to maintain my face, my voice. They wanted you to recognize me, to be paralyzed by shock when you saw me." Alex felt sick. The cruelty of it, the calculated evil, was beyond anything he had imagined even the Zytar capable of. "How did you end up here? On Xandros?" "I was on a mission," Kira said. She winced suddenly, pressing her fingertips to her temples as blue veins pulsed visibly beneath her skin. A small trickle of blood escaped her nostril. "What's happening?" Alex moved to help her. "The memories," she gasped, her voice strained. "When I access Elena's memories, my memories, it triggers the neural safeguards they implanted." She took several deep breaths until the pain subsided. "They didn't want me remembering too much. It's physical punishment for disobedience." When she could speak again, her voice was weaker. "The helmet, it makes me obey. But sometimes when the orders conflict with who I was, I can resist, despite the pain. I crashed the ship deliberately. I knew you were here. I don't know how, but I knew." She gestured toward his locket. "That's part of it. I was drawn to it. Like it contained something they couldn't extract from me during the conversion." "The locket?" Alex asked, pulling it out. "It's just a standard core memory crystal. Elena and I stored our shared memories, coordinates to places special to us. It's encrypted, though. Only opens with my biometric signature." Kira's eyes widened. "That's it. They couldn't access those memories no matter how deep they dug into my brain. Those coordinates, those memories, they remained hidden." "And now?" Alex asked, his voice hoarse. "What happens now?" "He'll come for me," Kira said, fear evident in her voice. "Warlord Khazar. He created me. He doesn't tolerate failure." "Xar," Alex repeated, the name like acid on his tongue. "He led the raid on the settlement. He's the one who..." He couldn't finish the sentence. Kira nodded. "He's the architect of all this. Of what I've become." Alex's mind raced. Part of him wanted to run, to escape this nightmare. But a larger part, the part that had never stopped loving Elena, knew what he had to do. "We'll fight him," he said, his voice gaining strength. "Together." "You don't understand," Kira said, shaking her head. "He's too powerful. And without the helmet, I'm unstable. The neural connections, they're deteriorating. I don't know how long I can stay coherent." "Then we'll make the most of the time we have," Alex said, reaching out to take her hand, her blue alien hand. "We'll prepare." They spent the next days fortifying the cave, setting traps, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Kira's condition fluctuated. Sometimes she was lucid, remembering details of their life together. Other times she lapsed into confusion, speaking in the Zytar language, her movements becoming more alien. Each recovered memory came at a terrible price. Blood would stream from her nose, her eyes, sometimes even her ears. She would convulse, muscles spasming as the neural safeguards punished her rebellion. Yet she persisted, forcing herself to remember, fighting through the agony. "Stop!" Alex begged after a particularly severe episode left her unconscious for hours. "You're killing yourself." "I need to remember," she insisted when she woke, her voice raw. "Each memory I reclaim is a piece of myself they can't have. A victory." Alex watched her struggle, his heart breaking anew each time she looked at him with confusion, not recognizing him. But each time she fought her way back, her love for him stronger than the Zytar conditioning and the pain it inflicted. One night, as she recovered from another memory surge, Alex opened his locket. The quantum crystal glowed softly in the dim light of their cave. "Maybe this can help," he said, placing it in her blue palm. "These are our memories, the ones they couldn't take." Kira stared at the crystal, hesitant. "The neural interface. It might kill me if I try to access these directly. Or it might be the key to breaking their control completely," Alex said softly. She closed her fingers around the crystal and pressed it to her forehead. The effect was immediate and violent. Her body arched in agony, a scream tearing from her throat. Blue veins bulged across her skin, pulsing with unnatural light. Alex held her as she convulsed, terrified he had made a terrible mistake. Then suddenly she went still. When her eyes opened, they were clear and focused in a way they hadn't been before. "I remember the coordinates," she whispered. "All of them. Places they never found." She looked at Alex with renewed purpose, including the location of the resistance. Other humans and aliens fighting the Zaitar. "We're not alone, Alex." They talked during her lucid periods. She told him what she remembered of her captivity, of the experiments, of the other humans the Zaitar had taken. He told her of his years on Zandros, of his grief, of his hatred that had nearly led him to kill her. "I would have deserved it," she said softly. "I've done terrible things under their control. Killed your comrades, helped plan raids." "That wasn't you," Alex insisted. "You were their prisoner." "But it was my hands," Kira said, looking at her blue fingers. "My body. Even if my mind rebelled, it was still me." Alex had no answer for that. The line between victim and weapon, between prisoner and accomplice, was not as clear as he wished it to be. On the 7th day, they left the cave. Their supplies were dwindling, and Kira's condition was stabilizing enough to risk travel. The coordinates in Alex's locket had triggered something in her memory, a location not far from their position, an old core outpost where Alex and Elena had once been stationed together. "It might have communication equipment," Alex explained as they made their way across the rust-colored landscape. "Maybe even a functioning shuttle." Kira walked beside him, her movements more fluid now, though she still wore the damaged helmet. "If we can contact the resistance," she began, then winced as another memory surfaced. She pushed through the pain, refusing to let it control her. "Your core established contact with other species fighting the Zaitar. They called themselves the Alliance." They crested a ridge, and there it was, a small research station nestled against a cliff face. The core insignia was still visible on the main building, though sand and time had worn it nearly smooth. "It looks intact," Alex said, hope rising in his chest for the first time in years. They approached cautiously, weapons ready. The entrance was sealed, but Alex's old access code still worked. The station had been abandoned in haste, not decommissioned properly. Inside, emergency lighting flickered to life, casting the corridors in a dim blue glow. The air was stale but breathable. They moved through the facility methodically, checking each room. Most were stripped of anything useful, but the command center still had functioning consoles. Alex ran his hand along the main communications panel. "Elena worked here," he said softly. "She was developing new encryption protocols for deep space communication." Kira approached one of the consoles, drawn to it by some half-remembered instinct. Her fingers moved across the controls with surprising familiarity. I know this system," she said, confusion evident in her voice. "I helped design the subspace relay." Alex watched her work, amazed and disturbed by this further evidence that his wife's mind resided in this blue-skinned body. Suddenly, the main screen flickered to life, but instead of the core insignia, a different symbol appeared, the crest of the Zaitar. "Hello, Captain Alexander Ross," a voice said as the screen resolved into the face of a Zaitar commander. Unlike Kira, his face was uncovered. Blue skin stretched over sharp, predatory features, golden eyes gleaming with malevolent intelligence. "And hello, my dear creation." "Khazar," Kira whispered, her body tensing. "I see you've removed the helmet," Khazar said, his voice almost conversational. "How disappointing. I put so much work into you." "You're tracking us," Alex said, moving to stand beside Kira. "Of course. Did you think I would let my masterpiece go so easily?" Khazar's golden eyes shifted to Alex, especially when she's with the very man she was designed to destroy. "What do you want?" Alex demanded. "To offer you a choice, Captain." Khazar leaned forward, his face filling the screen. "You see, I've been watching you both. How touching, this little reunion. The loyal husband finding his long-lost wife in the body of his enemy. He chuckled, the sound like grinding metal. But what you have there is a pale imitation, a shadow. Kira flinched beside Alex. I have the complete neural scan of Elena Ross, Kazar continued. Every memory, every thought, every feeling, preserved perfectly at the moment of her capture, uncorrupted by my modifications. Alex felt his heart skip a beat. You're lying. Am I? Kazar's thin lips curved into a smile. Before I transformed her, I preserved her essence. A scientist appreciates a pure control sample, after all. He tapped something off screen, and the image changed. There was Elena, not the blue-skinned warrior standing beside Alex, but Elena as she had been, human, beautiful, her blonde hair, her warm smile, a recording from before her capture. Alex, is that you? The recording said, the voice so achingly familiar that Alex felt his knees weaken. They're saying the evacuation ships are coming. I don't know if this message will reach you, but I love you. I've always loved you. The image froze on Elena's face, his wife as he remembered her. Here is my offer, Kazar said, his face replacing Elena's. Return my creation to me, and I will give you this neural scan. With today's technology, you could create a perfect simulation, indistinguishable from the real Elena. You could live out your days with her, exactly as she was. Not this blue-skinned abomination, but your true love restored to you. Alex felt Kira trembling beside him. Or, Kazar continued, you can keep running with that broken thing beside you, a creature torn between two identities, who will never truly be Elena nor fully Kira, who will suffer endless pain as her brain tears itself apart between human memories and Zytar conditioning. Don't listen to him, Kira whispered, her voice strained. Think carefully, Captain, Kazar said. Your perfect past or a doomed future with a monster wearing your wife's face. You have one planetary rotation to decide. I'll be coming for what's mine either way. The screen went dark. Alex stood motionless, the offer echoing in his mind. Elena, his Elena, restored to him. Not this confusing amalgamation of his wife and an alien warrior, but the woman he had fallen in love with. You should consider it, Kira said quietly, stepping away from him. He wasn't lying about the pain. These memories, they're killing me. And I'll never be her, not completely. And what happens to you if I accept his offer? Alex asked, his voice hoarse. He'll wipe me clean, start over, turn me into something else. She looked down at her blue hands. Maybe that would be a mercy. Alex was silent for a long moment, the weight of the choice crushing him. Then his gaze fell on his locket, still hanging around his neck. The real Elena had given it to him, filled it with their shared memories. Not a simulation, not a perfect copy, but the authentic, flawed, beautiful reality of their love. He looked at Kira, at the warrior who had fought beside him, who struggled against impossible odds to reclaim her identity, who had chosen freedom over obedience despite the cost. I don't want the past, he said finally. I've been living in it for 5 years. It's a prison. He stepped closer to Kira, taking her hand, her blue alien hand. I choose you, he said. Not because you have Elena's face or her memories, but because of who you are now. Kira, a woman who fights for her freedom, who makes her own choices despite the pain. The relief in her eyes was palpable, even through the damaged helmet. Now, Alex said, turning back to the console, let's see what this station still has that we can use. Xar's coming, and we need to be ready. As they searched the facility, they discovered an old weapons cache and, more importantly, a working subspace transmitter. Kyra's knowledge, Elena's knowledge of the system allowed them to send a coded message to the resistance coordinates stored in the locket. They prepared for battle, knowing Xar would come with overwhelming force. But now they had something they hadn't before. Hope. Hope that they weren't alone in their fight. Hope that there was a future beyond Xandros. On the 7th day, they came, not with the subtlety of the Marauders, but with the full force of a Zytar war party. Dropships darkened the sky, and warriors in armor similar to Kira's descended on the outpost. At their head was Warlord Xar, taller than the others, his armor adorned with trophies from 100 battles. His helmet was open, revealing golden eyes that burned with contempt for all non-Zytar life. She belongs to me, human, Xar roared, his voice carrying across the canyon. I made her. I broke her. Alex and Kira stood at the entrance to their cave, weapons ready. Kira had put her helmet back on, not to submit, but to access the neural enhancements that made her a deadlier fighter. No one belongs to you, Alex called back. She's free. Khazar laughed, the sound like grinding metal. Free? She is my creation, my weapon, and she will return to me, or I will take her from your corpse. Battle was inevitable. Alex and Kira fought back to back, their movements now not just synchronized, but intuitive. They moved as one being, each anticipating the other's needs without words. The Zytar warriors were elite, but they had never faced an opponent like the merged fighting style of Alex and Kira. Human precision combined with Zytar strength. Corpse tactics merged with alien speed. But Khazar's elite warriors were too many, too strong. Gradually, they forced Alex and Kira back toward the cave. We can't win like this, Kira gasped, her voice distorted by the helmet. We just need to reach the traps, Alex replied, firing steadily. Lead them in. They retreated into the cave, the Zytar following eagerly, sensing victory. The first trap, a gravity mine scavenged from the crashed ship, activated, sending 3 warriors floating helplessly toward the ceiling. The second, a modified impulse grenade, detonated, filling a narrow passage with deadly shrapnel. But Khazar was too experienced to fall for such tricks. He held back, sending his warriors ahead while he observed. In the heart of the cave, the final confrontation came. Alex and Kira, exhausted and wounded, faced the remaining Zytar, including Xar himself. You disappoint me, Kira, the warlord said, his voice almost sad. You were my masterpiece. I am not yours, Kira replied, her voice strong despite her wounds. No? Khazar stepped forward, a power hammer activating in his hand. Let's see if your human still wants you when he sees what you truly are. In the heat of the fight, Khazar broke through to Kira. He struck her helmet with his power hammer. The metal, already damaged, couldn't withstand the blow. The helmet shattered, revealing her face, and Alex screamed. It was Elena's face. Not just the parts visible through the crack, but all of it. Her eyes, her nose, her mouth. The only difference was the blue skin and the tentacle-like appendages where her hair should be. Khazar burst out laughing, his laughter echoing through the cave. I have returned your love to you, human. Am I not merciful? She was meant to be my greatest psychological weapon, a living ghost to break any commander's will. He stalked closer, his golden eyes burning with a possessive intensity as he gazed at Kira's face. Do you know how long I searched for the perfect specimen? When I found her in that settlement, I knew immediately. Such beauty, such defiance. His voice changed, becoming almost reverent. I offered her everything. Power, knowledge, a place at my side as we conquered the stars. Alex felt sick as understanding dawned. You were obsessed with her. I loved her, Khazar roared, slamming his power hammer into the cave wall, sending fractures spiderwebbing across the stone. I showed her visions of galaxies. I offered her immortality, and she chose you, a pathetic human soldier who couldn't even protect her. He turned to Kira, reaching toward her face with armored fingers. When she refused me, I decided to remake her. If I couldn't have her love, I would have her loyalty. I would possess her essence, bound to my will. His voice dropped to a whisper. And at night, when the helmet comes off, I could look upon her face and pretend. The revelation of Khazar's twisted obsession hung in the air like poison. This wasn't just war or conquest. This was the perversion of love into something monstrous. She was meant to make you serve me, Khazar continued, regaining his composure. But now I see you are both broken beyond repair. Alex stared at the face he had seen in his dreams every night for 5 years. He saw the confusion and horror in the eyes he had loved so much. It was the cruelest, most sophisticated form of torture imaginable. Khazar expected Alex to break, to fall to his knees, crushed by grief and shock. But he underestimated Alex, and he underestimated the bond that had formed between him and Kira. Alex looked at her, not at the ghost of Elena, but at the warrior who had fought beside him, who had saved him, who had shared his shelter. He didn't see his dead wife. He saw Kira. Her name is Kira, he yelled, his voice filled with a fury Xandros had never heard. He charged at Khazar, not for revenge for the past, but for the protection of the present. Seeing his resolve, Kira came to her senses too. She was no longer a broken toy. She was a warrior who had made her choice. She attacked Xar with a ferocity he had never seen in her. Together they were unstoppable. They fought not as two soldiers. They fought as one heart, one will. They drove Khazar back step by step until they cornered him against the wall of the cave. "You," the warlord rasped, bleeding from a dozen wounds. "You were supposed to be my perfect. I am not yours," Kira said, and in her voice, Elena's voice, there was a strength the original had never possessed. "I am my own." She stepped closer to Khazar, her blade humming with energy. "And I remember everything now. How you came to the settlement. How you singled me out. How you told me you'd kill everyone unless I went with you." Her voice grew colder with each word. "How you watched while they cut me open, while they put me in this body, while they tried to erase who I was." She raised her free hand, revealing Alex's locket. "But there were some things you couldn't take. Some memories even your scientists couldn't extract." Khazar's golden eyes widened in recognition. "The core encryption..." "More than that," Kira said. "Love. Something you could never understand. Something you could only twist into obsession." She raised her energy blade and, with a single fluid motion, delivered the final blow. As the light faded from Zar's eyes, she whispered, "This is for Elena. And for Kira. We are both free now." When it was all over, they stood in the silence, surrounded by the bodies of their enemies. Kira slowly turned to Alex, her face, Elena's face, filled with uncertainty. "What now?" she asked softly. Alex walked up to her. He looked into her brown eyes, Elena's eyes. He saw the reflection of his own pain, his own loneliness, but he also saw strength, resilience, hope. He reached out and gently touched her cheek. "I see you, Kira," he said softly. "Not the ghost they tried to make you. You." Tears streamed from her eyes. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to cry. He held her close, and in the red desert of Zandros, on the ruins of their shared past, they began to build their future. They did not stay on Zandros. Using Zar's ship, they left the planet that had been Alex's self-imposed prison. They became a legend in the border worlds. The human man and the blue-skinned warrior with the face of an angel who hunted the Zaitar. They did not seek revenge. They sought liberation. They found others whom the Zaitar had abducted and mutilated, giving them hope and a second chance. Some were humans transformed like Kira. Others were beings from a dozen worlds, all victims of Zaitar experimentation. Together they formed a community of survivors, a family born not of blood, but of shared pain and healing. They became a symbol that even from the deepest darkness and the most terrible grief, something new and beautiful could be born. Alex never forgot Elena. He kept her memory alive in stories he told to their growing community. But he fell in love with Kyra, not for the face she wore, but for the warrior's soul that lived beneath it. The woman who had fought through hell and emerged stronger. The woman who had chosen her own path. And Kira, who had been created as a weapon, found purpose as a healer. She used her knowledge of Zaitar biology and technology to help other victims, to reverse what could be reversed, to heal what could be healed. In time, the legend grew. The human and the blue-skinned warrior with Elena's face became more than people. They became hope, a beacon in the darkness of war, a promise that no matter how deep the scars, healing was possible.